Welcome back to the Flashback Squad. Today, I asked JoXavier to come back. JoXavier is a financial planner and she helps us take care of the money. And Theo is a health and wellness expert and he's going to tell us about some of the things he's going through right now. Welcome to both of you guys.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. So today we're talking about what happens when those plans become real life. Because eventually, I think everybody has experienced this either directly or indirectly. You get a phone call, a diagnosis, an emergency, or someone has passed away. And the goal for this show today was I wanted to share ways that we can keep the stress levels down. And the best way to do that is just to be prepared. And by having these two wonderful guests on today, one is going to talk about how we need to plan with our money. Theo talks about a bunch of things, including, keeping our bodies and our physical bodies together. And with Theo, he just recently completed a caregiver journey with his Aunt Edna. Aunt Edna passed away, what was it, about 3 or 4 months ago, Theo?
Yeah, whenever this comes out, it was in March of 2026, and she was 95, almost made it to 96. And she lived 2 years after her husband had passed. And we know when we deal with elders, a lot of times one can go right after the other. And it's really important of the type of environment and the type of love and compassion that the surviving spouse has that can help extend their life, longer on this planet. So I just kind of took that role and left the Bay Area to LA to stay with my aunt and support my aunt and make sure she didn't have to go through any type of elder abuse or anyone trying to run through her finances or just give her the love and dignity that she deserved in her last years. So I wanted to see if I can get her to her 96th birthday, but we celebrated 94 and we celebrated 95 and she almost made it to 96. But about her, I love to say she passed in her own house, in her own bed, pain-free and debt-free. If I could go like that into my 90s, I feel like I did a decent job. So,
Well done to your aunt. Very well done.
Wow. So you say that one more time. Just repeat it for those in the back.
Yeah. So, how we're going to talk about financial literacy and financial wellness. And what we are focusing in on is what condition do we want to leave this space, this planet, and what condition do we want to leave for our loved ones? Right. And doing that's what we're talking about, having this pre-planning, always being structured and organized and understanding that we are going to come to an end. Father Time is undefeated.
Undefeated.
And and how do we want that transition to happen? And with my Aunt Edna, evangelist, Edna Watson Wilborn, she evangelist, get that part because she was a spiritual woman and she was the eldest of 11, actually 12. She had a twin brother that passed when he was at birth. But in any case, she passed in her own house that she owned, in her own bed, pain-free, relatively pain-free, no severe pain, and debt-free. She didn't owe anything. She didn't owe anybody anything more than just the monthly payments that you have to make for your PG&E and water and trash, sewage and stuff like that. But she wasn't in debt. So it was a blessing for her.
And the family.
And the family. Yeah. Me as the executor of the trust, because the property wasn't a trust. Now there's some things that maybe we can talk about too. I'm not sure if you talked about reverse mortgages. And I know, Z, you probably have more information to weigh in on that. But that's something that's happening. We see as this big transfer of wealth from one generation to the next generation is happening right now in our lifetime. A lot of our families have taken these reverse mortgages out and, are pretty much sacrificing the property or putting the property at a position where the family has to basically buy it back. So you're buying a house twice to keep the wealth and to try to rebuild that going on. But these conversations need to happen in our community. And I'm so happy to be here to share any information that I can.
Yeah, I can speak from experience for a little bit. first mortgages. But I want to ask you, JoXavier, how often do you see families making emotional financial decisions because they waited too long?
I have seen it happen way more times than I would have liked to. And then what's so sad is when, somebody passes away and they don't have, things titled the right way, they don't have beneficiaries, they don't have a will. It's basically
Mhm.
pass away and it's called passing away interstate. And so interstate means that the state is going to decide how these assets are split up, they make all the decisions. I mean, it also has a cost associated with it as well. So the family is pretty much just kind of, at their own resources, whatever they can pull together as a family, to bury this person, to pay their bills, to, continue to pay the mortgage, till they figure everything out to try and see if that person has the assets to either pay it off or keep it, and how that whole thing will play out. So having the will in place is so important. A trust is important too, but a trust isn't for every person, but a will, at least a will. And even when you do have a will, you still have to go through probate. The difference is with the will has the instructions as to how the decedent wanted their assets to be divided, and disposed. So yeah, it's never too soon to at least have a will. And also, I know you mentioned that your aunt, she passed away, without any debt, and she lived for a really long time. One of
Mhm.
the biggest things that eats wealth up is health issues. As you get older, you have to go to the doctor more. Usually have some huge, end of life event where you're, in a hospital, in a nursing home, in hospice. But the fact that she was able to be at home,
Mhm.
that's, a whole lot. And I know she mentioned that you a wellness specialist. Is that like a health wellness, Theo?
Well, we do optimum wellness, and there's various categories of wellness, and financial wellness is included in that.
Okay.
So we do physical wellness, we do mental wellness, spiritual wellness, and we work towards the totality of the human experience. So we touch on a little bit of that, and this is why what I do definitely with the health and wellness aspect, traditional health and wellness as we think about it, but also what I call family fiduciary services to have some of the conversations. Like, I don't sell insurance. I don't do pre-need policies for burials. I'm not an expert or have any type of products, but working with the families to think about these things and giving them strategies on what can happen. So, like, to add on what you were saying about the estates going to probate, there is a thing of a small estate affidavit for estates that are in California that are less than $250,000. So if you have a will and the estate is less than $250,000, you can just get this document notarized that would give you authority to receive those funds or receive that property, and you can still bypass going to probate. Because I'm actually going through that right now with some of my aunt and uncle's estate, is working
So
with that small estate affidavit.
let me just ask you, so you said if the property is valued less than 250?
When I say property, I don't mean real estate.
Okay,
I mean,
because it's like I don't think it's anything that's less than 250. Okay, I get it.
Now, what we were alluded to earlier, of course, if you have real estate, you do want it to be inside of your trust, because regardless, if you have real estate and it's not inside the trust, it's going to go to probate. So,
Yeah,
and the
that's what
only
I was saying.
way is to put it inside the trust.
That's what I was going to share after you reminded me. It just happened in 2022. My sister was getting ill, and we drew up a trust for her. My friend, who's a real estate agent, drew it up, and she was going to have the notary come sign it, or notarize it after she signed it. And she passed away like that same morning. She passed away like 4 or 5 in the morning, and the notary was supposed to come at 11 that day. So that was it's just I missed it by that much, and it caused a few years of a lot of back and forth and a lot of arguments and folks not talking to each other anymore. And then the house was in Altadena, California, with the big Altadena fires. So the house was sold eventually, burned down, but it wasn't. Our son said, "Well, at least you sold it, mommy." So it would have been a big mess if it had burnt down before it was sold. So, but yeah, all these things can be traumatic. But let me know if you agree. Like, it's better to have these kind of like difficult conversations before, because if you wait, it could just be worse.
I agree. You have to be proactive instead of reactive with these things, because usually when you are trying to react, it's already too late. That person is usually already at the end of life, not in a position to really be competent and to make,
Yeah.
decisions. Then the families, of course, are now at odds because, things are not paved out or in order. So I would say, gathering your families together, family reunions is another great time to, have these type of
Mhm.
conversations. Yeah, just making it a point to talk about it, connect with the right people, bring in people that, that have experience, in this, talk to financial advisors, talk to your life insurance representatives, and make sure that you understand all the options and then you have a solid plan in place, especially with the will, because the will holds so many things as far as, your medical power of attorney. It also will hold your medical directive in case, you were incapacitated, all those things as far as do you want to be resuscitated, all that needs to be, in black and white on paper to have a roadmap for your family, because we all have, a date, we just don't know when. So
Mhm. And to that point, it's interesting because my parents passed. They transcended in the early 2010s, 2011 and 2013. So I was involved with both of their health care and dealing with them. But with I had support. But with my aunt, I didn't have as much support. And she was a kept woman from when she was 5 years old. She was spoiled to all the way to when she was 95.
Oh, boy.
She had somebody, making sure she got what she wanted and she had it her way. That's how Auntie Edna was. And it was a blessing to be there. And you mentioned something that's really important. I think when you talked about the funeral, not the funeral, but the insurance, is like there's a misunderstanding that life insurance is the insurance that pays for the funeral.
The funeral. Hmm.
Yeah, those are two separate things. Life insurance is to help the family maintain the lifestyle that particular loved one, maybe they were the breadwinner, to help them maintain that type of lifestyle. Now, pre-need burial insurance, like a lot of us may recall our grandparents or maybe our great aunts, and they say, oh yeah, they already have it paid for. They already have their plot, they already have their casket. That's what that's for. And we know that anything, just like you take it in a smoking car to a mechanic. If you take a smoking car to the mechanic, there's going to be no discount. You already know that you're in need and there's no breaks. Same thing with the funeral insurance. If you do it and pay on it prior to when you need it, there's one rate, there's one fee. And then, of course, if you wait till your loved one passes, then there's what we call in need. It's that in need fee, our cost, our rate that you have to pay. So once again, to your point and to our point of the conversation, it does matter, especially financially and emotionally, when you plan these things early. And even to the degree on your other episode, I think I heard you kind of mention like a good age to start thinking about these things, and pretty much whenever you start accumulating assets, you should think about this. I remember when I was at San Diego State, my first college that I went to, and there were young students there. And of course, they were super encouraged about voting because, their parents owned property. They were property owners. So who was going to be in office did matter because they were going to make policies that would affect their wealth, right? And one of the students encouraged me to get a life insurance policy. And I wish I felt like I could have gotten it at 20 years old, at 18 years old, and as opposed to waiting till I got into my 40s to get a whole life policy and see the benefits of the growth and accumulation of the wealth through an insurance policy, right? And that's I think one area that we can definitely benefit in and start our young people on early, like taking insurance policies on our youth. By the time they get 18, they do have $1 million policy that has accrued interest and dividends, and they can pull out cash value and use that for education or use that to travel. But once again, it starts with the early planning and these types of conversations.
Yeah, JoXavier, tell us some more about that as far as like
Yeah.
insurance policy, like even for when you have a baby, you can when they're
Whole
first.
life insurance. As soon as you get the social security number, you should be getting a whole life policy on the child, because as Theo was mentioning, those living benefits, that cash value, that bills, I mean, it's really life changing when you see how the difference between starting young versus starting much older. The older you start, the higher your premium is going to be.
Yeah.
The less you're gonna get, the less time you have for the money to compound and grow. So the earlier you start, the better it will be. Also, you can always increase that policy, because you say you take out the policy on a child, or when you're 18 or 20 years old, your life is I would hope that you would increase as far as income like that is concerned. So you can always increase the policy as that child grows up and they become an adult. They'll take on the policy at that point. Then it's just wealth that just continues to build. And then if you want to really start getting into, legacy, you have policy that will pay a family trust, and then if people in the family die, the family legacy just continues to build. So yeah, definitely whole life is definitely something that should be a part of everyone's financial strategy, their financial plan, because a lot of the times you think, I just got to put money away into 401k. That's only one bucket. And it's also tied to the market. So when the market goes through ups and downs, ebbs and flows, so is Leo. But if you have another bucket over here of whole policy money that's continuing to grow steady, that's not attached to the market, you'll be able to leverage that money versus leveraging your brokerage money, so that money have a chance to rebound. So just being diversified, whole life insurance should definitely be a part of everyone's financial strategy for sure.
Like
Yeah.
it was said, amen.
There's something that I want to add on to that I'm happy that you refer to my very recent experiences, because it has given me exposure to a lot of different areas, from the topics that we've discussed already to Medicare and Medi-Cal and transfer of annuities and just wealth management, just a lot of different areas of life. But one thing we need to make sure that folks also understand, when we talk about the pre-need insurance, and now I'm talking about burial insurance, there's three different areas. So I had a situation that I was working with a family, and this particular family this family member had bought their paid for their funeral space like a couple decades ago, and it was like $10,000, and they figured that they put the $10,000 on down, they're fine. Mm-hmm. When we went through the records and we actually were in the actual funeral home, they pulled the records from decades ago. What they found out is like, yes, this person had bought the real estate, but they hadn't paid for the services, and they hadn't paid opening and closing costs. So there are three different areas of payment structures that you need when you're buying your final arrangement needs. It's your closing cost, it's your service, and it's the real estate. Where is the body going to lie? Is it going to be in the crypt, or is it going to be in the ground? So they had bought that. They had bought the space where it was going to go. And it turns out that they owed another $8,000 just to finalize that. So if something would have happened to this person, say this person would have passed, and they think that, hey, I got it already paid for, I'm good to go. Here's my document. We would have got that contract and walked it in there and probably been swearing through hell and high water that they, are robbing us right now. Mm-hmm. And they're holding it over the family's head to make us pay some more money, not understanding how the process works. And these are the conversations, that we're having. And that's something that I live real life. So that person is actually finalizing their payment. So if anything does happen to them, they will have a final resting place, and the family won't have to do a GoFundMe or use the life insurance policy cash out to pay for the rest of the funeral expenses. So that's something that we need to know too.
There's several things involved. And so your aunt's caregiver for how many years?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I initially when my aunt passed, we went to the funeral home, and it was Crenshaw, on Crenshaw Boulevard. I think it's Angela's Funeral Parlor on Crenshaw. Mm-hmm. When we pulled her contract, the contract was signed in 2021. So I had been engaged with my aunt's healthcare since 2021, a year after the lockdown. I moved to LA the last 2 years, 2024 into 2025. and then she transcended in 2026. So I have been going back and forth to LA for about the last 5 or 6 years, leading to her, finally her final transcension. So yeah.
And that was because she and her husband, they didn't have any children.
That was definitely one of the reasons why they didn't have the support. Had been married for 60 years. I think he ended up passing 2 years before her, and he was in his late 80s. And he had went blind. And I called them Ozzie and Harriet because they had an old school relationship. He did all the finance stuff, and she just wanted to make sure whatever money came into the house, it didn't matter as long as I got what I needed. You know what I'm saying? We're married, you take care of that, and you give me what I say. So that was Auntie Edna.
Oh wow.
But yeah, but I have learned a lot, and that's one of the things that I've been just trying to share with families. And like you were saying on the previous episode, some of these conversations are not easy to have, and sometimes the elders don't want to have them.
Yeah.
But like you said, like at the family reunions are good times to try to bring up these conversations and just try to get our families so we can pass that generational wealth to the next generation if there's something to pass. And a lot of times there is, when we plan ahead of time.
There always will be if you plan ahead of time. One thing that I wanted to add, I know you mentioned that your aunt, she have a lot of support. So that's how you ended up kind of stepping in and helping her through her transition. One thing that I might like to make sure I mention to my clients, especially those that, maybe have a very small family or they don't have any children, is to consider adding a long-term care plan as a part of their financial strategy added to that portfolio. Because as I mentioned before, when you start getting older, your health and expenses of healthcare and just trying to stay healthy through the end, it adds up, and a lot of times it starts to eat into whatever retirement funds you have set aside for yourself. So the long-term care plan is not even a lot, from what you would think. It's not an astronomical number that will be added to a monthly premium, but it's definitely something to consider. That way, getting sick is gonna usually always be a part of the story at some point when we do pass away. So having that policy that to fall back on to cover those expenses is really important to keeping wealth going forward.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is something I want to explore. I did get a quote for that. I think it was like 400 and something a month.
Mm-hmm.
So what all does it cover? What does long-term insurance?
So you kind of set like the amount that you kind of want to have delegated. It's just going to kind of depend on what type of long-term care experience you want to have. Some people want to keep it very basic, but it will cover things like nursing home stays. It will cover if you want to have, around the clock care, someone coming into your home, versus, it being falling on children. In this case, Theo, a nephew, you would have basically a team nurses that would come in and take care of you, depending on the amount of premium that you can afford would determine the length of time that policy would cover you.
Okay. And is there like only a certain amount of time that you can have this before you pass away?
No. Once you opt into it, and you make the premium payment on it, you're good.
Okay. Well, that topic of caregiving for our elders is one it's also kind of involved, and you have to be there to understand. So I want to ask you, Theo, did you have to deal with any resentment or guilt or kind of negative emotions, anything like that?
Really thankful for our family. There were, like I said, 12 of them on my mother's side. And at this point, I believe maybe 4 or 5 of the siblings are still alive. And most folks have their nuclear families and they are dealing with what they have to deal with. So they were just thankful and grateful that somebody that they felt that they could trust just took up the responsibility, and all those types of feelings or emotions, they never directed them to me. Maybe they had concerns or whatever, but people would back off and be like, well, he's the one down there doing it, so you gotta let him do it. I mean, are you gonna go do it? Are you gonna move with you? So we kind of addressed that early on, and I kind of saw it with my particular situation. I saw it coming up, and I knew that I had other elder aunts, and they were in multiple cities, some up north in Las Vegas, and they were not going to be in a position to support her. Oh, I want to say this too. My youngest sister, when my Uncle Hiram first passed, he brought Auntie Edna to the Bay Area. She brought Auntie Edna to the Bay Area, and Auntie Edna stayed with my youngest sister for maybe like 9 or 10 months. And I supported my youngest sister while she would go to work, and I would check in on Auntie Edna. So when that, Auntie Edna could be, Auntie Edna special. So, but when that visitation came to an end and it was time for Auntie Edna to go back to her own house, it was nobody there. So I knew at that point I was going to have to make that transition with her. There's nobody asked me, nobody forced me, nobody told me, I just did that on my own. So, and then I kind of managed it on my own as well, because their relationship, they were connected with the family, but they were also reclusive in the sense that that's why they were able to stay married for 60 years. A lot of people weren't in their business. They didn't have a lot of people in their house. They were definitely connected to the family. So when I took over her estate, it was really super easy and kind of discreet. I just the type of person that I share. Like, I talked about the house. If people want to purchase the house, this is what I'm selling the house for. Try to sell it to the family first, but if not, I'm selling it. You know what I mean? And let them know, like, hey, this is what's owed on this, or this is what's owed on that. If you all want to get involved, you can get involved. But if not, that was your first opportunity and probably your last. I'm going to move forward. So with my particular family, it's been pretty decent. One thing I did want to add on, I'm not sure if we talked about this, what I call future life needs, because in our new era, our new digital era, we have some other concerns that we didn't have analog, pre-1999, pre-Prince, party till 1999. So I'm not sure how old you are. JoXavier, you might not be ready for that one, but
I've heard of a time or two. Okay.
Okay, I'm with you. But now when people pass, I'm sure we all can attest to this, that folks pass and their Facebooks are still up, their Instagrams are still up. So we also need directives for our digital imprint. What do we want to have happen? Like you were saying, like with our health directives, what do we want to have happen with our digital identities? And where are those passwords? I mean, who can get into that, and that's something that can also be tucked into our will when we have our instructions on because when I pass, I don't want my Facebook to stay up. I want it to come down. It's not gonna, and I have my own reasons why. I won't get into that, but my directive is going to be like to close my accounts. And, I'll leave a few pictures up, know that I was here. You can always Google it or something, but just that social media aspect. So that's something I think that we should include in the conversation. And that might be for a higher level of person, but I don't think so, because everybody has a digital identity now.
Right. And I know on social media now you can assign someone directly inside of the social media itself, like Facebook, Instagram, designate someone, but having it as a part of your will, as a part of your directive, I think that's definitely something that's important, especially now. A lot of people have digital identities, online presence, public figures online. So I think it's definitely a good add-on to where we're
is a public figure nowadays, and I can only imagine it's just going to increase as time goes by. But in regards to being a caregiver and the emotional aspect of it, I just wanted to also connect with Music Memory Lane, or connect Music Memory Lane to conversation, and how music can really transform emotions and just help us get through things, even these hard conversations. And with the, exhaustion point, and sometimes dealing with our parents or aunts and uncles that are in their 90s, like you said, Aunt Edna was very,
special,
particular
for sure.
things, but thankfully she didn't have dementia. But there's so many of us that are, our parents, hopefully we don't, acquire that. But what we do is we utilize music and movement, which Theo, you're an expert in the, dance and movement, physical wellness, to help them actually remember things. And they may not name, but they can remember those songs, just like singing, 99. But I'm talking about songs from like the 30s and the 40s. And it's very heartwarming and very rewarding. And so on future episodes of the Flashback Squad, we'll be talking more about that. But before we go, I want to ask both of you a question. If you would share, I'll start with you, Theo. I'll let you go first, and then I'll let JoXavier round it up. So for every family member or just everybody that's watching here today, what is one action that you would hope they would take after watching this episode today? Any action?
Okay. Well, I want to answer that. I'm going to answer that, but I also wanted to say to your point of music memory that each night that I would prepare dinner for Evangelist Edna, I would play music for her, and the memory aspect of what I would have conversations with her, and I didn't even know that she had an Uncle George that owned a candy store in Arkansas, and most of her family didn't know that they had an Uncle George. This was her grandmother's brother. That yeah, it was the great uncle, yeah, but they didn't know that this guy existed, and they all the family records. But when I would play the music, and we would have conversations, memories would come back, and we would talk. And of course I changed her diet to more of a plant-based diet with portions of meat. But yeah, but the music helped, and it just helped create the environment and the space. She liked a lot of gospel music and a lot of Andre Crouch, so would play that, and that would really ease her and calm her while she did. So music is very powerful, especially with our people. And we're talking about creating healing environments. What I would like for people to take out of this is just make some time to begin to make a list of areas that maybe you heard us mention, whether it's the will or the trust or protecting your digital identity or life insurance. Just make a list of these things and see where you are. Do you have these? Do you not have these? Do you need these? To what degree? And kind of move from there, and just do a self-check and self-evaluation on where you are with your estate. And I'm sure you already mentioned this earlier, but when we say estate, it doesn't mean like millions of dollars or house. It just means whatever your possessions are, that's your estate. It could be $1,500 and some racing cars and some comic books. That's your estate. But maybe the racing cars are expensive, maybe they're not. Maybe the comic books are expensive, maybe they're not. But you want to have directives of what you want to have done with your racing cars and your comic books and your $1,500. So anyway, that's what I would say. Make a list of your future needs.
Yeah. Otherwise, say, no, those are my comic books. No, those are my. You better not take those. Oh, it's but it's if we're organized and plan ahead, and there's lots of resources online that can help us, to get organized, and checklists, make it a little less stressful. So, JoXavier, what is an action or a directive or a to-do item? What is one thing that you hope that folks that are watching will do after watching our episode?
So one thing that I hope people will do after watching this episode, so I would say this week after you watch this episode, review your life insurance policies, open your retirement accounts, your bank accounts, look at your beneficiaries on all of your stuff. Make sure that you have a beneficiary. If you don't have a beneficiary, designate a beneficiary, or you may find that you have an old beneficiary on there that shouldn't be. Just to go off topic just a little bit, I had a client in the past that I had him do the same exercise. Hey, pull up your accounts. It only takes a few minutes. When I say, I mean all of them, your life insurance policies, your retirement accounts, and your bank accounts. And he still had an ex-wife as a beneficiary. Already remarried. So, imagine how that would have went if, God forbid, something happened to him. And then you're now, so that's something that I encourage everybody to do as an actionable item, a takeaway that would do wonders of a benefit to you and your family. That can be, an immediate, benefit to you guys from a financial standpoint.
Right. It sounds like it's a lot, but it has to be done. So we got to make it.
And that one's an easy one. It only takes like 10 minutes or so. If you have a lot of accounts, I don't know, it might take you longer, but I mean, it's pretty easy.
And then what happens too, it benefits in the end, right? Because now you actually know the 800 number, the account numbers, you have it readily available. Like even some of our personal stuff, like, do you know the VIN number to your car? Do you know the license plate to your car? Do you know your insurance, your auto insurance policy number? And you don't have to know it by heart or in your head. Some people are really good like that, but you do need to be able to go to your little black book, your little red book, your little whatever, and be able to pull it out and open it and say, okay, here's all my information. That if anything did happen to me, or not even if anything happened to me, I'm in Brazil and I can't get back. I'm not getting back. I'm enjoying Carnival. Don't call me. Here are the directives. I have a little black book. It has all the information in there. Go in there, transfer money from this account to that account, do blah, 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 and just keep it moving. So it doesn't necessarily have to be life or death per se. It could be about healthy living, but we do, like you were saying to us, we do need to get organized. And that's why I say, get your list together. I totally agree. Update your beneficiaries. We had this conversation Saturday with one of the families, and they, in their conversation, they found out that one of the family members had already decided who the secondary trustee was going to be. But the person that actually needed to put the secondary trustee on the trust, it hadn't been confirmed in their mind who the secondary trustee was going to be. But that was a conversation that was had right then. They settled it. And then now they had to update the beneficiaries and the secondary trustees and do all that kind of paperwork. So it starts with the conversations. And I'm so happy to be a part of this today.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you so much, Theo and JoXavier. This has been great. It's a topic that's, not like fun and exciting and or funny comedy, but it doesn't have to be drama either. We can make it simple and easy, as easy as possible with the planning in advance. So I want you guys to share your contact information. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, like with Theo Family Fiduciary Services or Samba.
It's funny. We gave two different names, and I'm gonna give you a third. They can reach me super easy at OHA Living, OHALIVING. That's Organic High Alkaline Living at Gmail, OHA Living at Gmail, and also ohaliving.com.
OHA Living. Okay, how about you, JoXavier? How can folks reach you with more questions on everything you have to offer?
You can reach me at my email. Is JoXavier Jackson at financialguide.com. That's JOXAV as in Victor, IER Jackson at financialguide.com. Or you can text me or you can call me. My business number is 404-334-2453.
Awesome. And I'll make sure I put that in the description. And for me, it's Music Memory Lane. Find out more about our services that we offer to families who children that can benefit from some music and movement. And also, we are going to be starting real soon an emotional wellness pillar of it because to a therapist, it just makes things so much lighter, and that helps folks and the children, the whole family, because just trying to alleviate all that stress. All righty. Well, thank you again, and we will see you again real soon. I don't know when. JoXavier, I might run into you in the streets. Maybe not. I don't do that anymore. And Theo, when are you going to be in Atlanta?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'm on the grind right now. We have a lot of shows coming up. It's pretty busy. And yeah, I'm working. I missed a little debt, not much, maybe about 10 grand. So I need to work some shows. I can knock it out real quick and just get back to. I don't like to carry a balance. So I don't like to carry that. We don't believe in that. I'm old school. We did layaway and we waited till we paid it off, and then we owned it. And then my dad was like that. My dad, when he bought a car, he would pay for it cash because he said that when he drove off the lot, he didn't want to answer nobody's questions about anything. He didn't want nobody calling him for nothing. He owned it free and clear. So yeah, but I would love to get down there before the end of the summer, but we'll see how that works out.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you guys go back to your days, your daily lives, and I appreciate you again. Thanks for watching the Flashback Squad.